We're going to start with the New England Patriots, and it's obvious, Ryan, that they need a quarterback.
Yeah, Jenny, it's funny to hear Elliott Wolf say that the Patriots are open for business, because that sounds a lot like Rick Spielman back in his days with the Vikings. And I won't tell the story that Rick likes to tell about involving his mom in trade and draft picks. But in terms of what the Patriots need to do, and Rick talked about this last year with the Houston Texans, who had 2 first-round picks, including number 2 overall. They cannot come out of this draft with a quarterback. So I think the starting point is that, yes, you're at number 3, and yes, you have an opportunity to take Jaden Daniels or Drake May, whoever's there after Caleb Williams goes first overall. But after that, you better love a J.J. McCarthy or a Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix if you're willing to trade down, because you still have to get a quarterback. You have needs, of course, at offensive line. They took a ton of guards last year, no tackles, so they have needs at tackle. They have needs at wide receiver. And I think that J.J. McCarthy, if you love him, you can trade down probably a spot or 2. But if you like Michael Penix Jr., perhaps into the middle of the first round, you can move down and get a little more draft capital. They've heard Elliott Wolf talk about. But whatever happens, under no circumstances, Jenny, can you come out of this draft without a quarterback.
Rick, before we move on to the next team, I need to hear this draft story with your mom involved.
Well, there was rumors out there that I would trade my mom for a 7th-round pick for as many 7th-round picks as I had. And
is it true?
I did offer her up once, but I couldn't get a go. I told her she makes a great Sunday dinner, but I couldn't get a taker.
Oh, your poor mother. All right, we're going to look at the Chargers next. Harbaugh at the helm there, maybe looking for some players to kind of maximize Justin Herbert's talent, are we?
Yeah, no, and it's obvious they need a receiver. They cut Mike Williams. They traded away Keenan Allen to the Chicago Bears for a 4th-round pick. But I would highly expect them to trade back. They only have 3 picks in the first 3 rounds. They need to add to this roster. Jim Harbaugh, the new head coach, is going to be able to run the ball. Once they're running the ball, hired Greg Roman as the offensive coordinator. You can look at potential offensive line here, which I wouldn't be surprised. But if you got an opportunity and you can't trade out to get one of these top 3 receivers, I think they would lean that way.
All right, we're going to go to the Titans next. So they traded for Snead and Ridley. That shored up 2 of their weaknesses. But, Ryan, where else do you think they need some help? I would imagine they need to make sure that Will Levis stays upright next season.
Exactly, Jenny. And they did a ton in terms of bolstering that defense with L'Jarius Sneed, and he talked about Calvin Ridley helping the wide receivers. But you have to keep Will Levis upright. I don't think there's a stronger quarterback currently in the NFL in terms of how he's built, and he likes to take on tacklers, but you don't want your franchise quarterback to do that. So last year they took Peter Skoronski in the 1st round, the left tackle out of Northwestern who moved to guard. This year, Joe Alt feels like the easiest pick in this draft, outside of perhaps Caleb Williams going 1st overall. He should be there at 7. The Titans desperately need a left tackle. Andre Dillard didn't work out last year. Joe Alt is the most NFL ready to come in right away and play, and he is absolutely enormous. I think you put him next to Peter Skoronski, and you are ready to go. One more person in front of Will Levis, and a huge person in front of Will Levis to help keep him upright and allow him to push the ball down the field to their new playmaker in Calvin Ridley.
We got the New York Jets up next. So, Rick, do you think we should look for a little love for Aaron Rodgers, or do you think he needs some more protection out there?
Well, the sexy pick, Jenny, if I can say that, is Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia. To me, if they do that, they're pushing all their chips in the middle because they know Aaron Rodgers may not be the quarterback after this year, but who knows how that'll play. I think they should go offensive line. They got Tyler Smith from the Cowboys, although he can't stay healthy a full 17 games. Traded for Morgan Moses. Vera Tucker is coming off an Achilles. So I still think they need offensive line. And if Olu Fashanu's there, I think you got to seriously consider him. But if you're going to go all in, take Brock Bowers.
We're going to look at the Broncos next. Sean Payton's current penciled-in starter is Jarrett Stidham. So, Ryan, quarterback?
Quarterback question mark is exactly the right way to phrase that, Jenny, because it feels like Drew Brees isn't currently on the roster. And I mentioned Drew Brees, of course, because of all the success that he and Sean Payton had in New Orleans. So then the question becomes, if you're sitting there at 12 and you don't have the draft capital that the Vikings have at 11 right ahead of you, what are you going to do? So you can sell the farm and try to leapfrog the Vikings somehow, and maybe you get a Drake May or J.J. McCarthy. You could stay put and probably have the ability to get a Michael Penix Jr., or you could trade trade down and maybe circle back and get one of my favorite players in this draft class, Rick, Mr. Spencer Rattler. But if Michael Penix Jr. is sitting there in the middle of the first round and you like, as Rick laughs, and you like someone who can throw the ball consistently down the field with accuracy and touch, Michael Penix Jr. is your guy. Now, they have needs at offensive tackle and cornerback, and maybe that's what they decide to do if the quarterbacks there in the first round aren't there that they like. But I think at the end of the day, Jarrett Stidham is a placeholder, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. I think he's a good but not great NFL quarterback. But if you're looking for someone for Sean Payton to build as a developmental quarterback, I think you have to think about it in the middle of the first round with someone like Michael Penix Jr.
Why are you laughing there, Rick? What's so funny?
Because he has to get off this Spencer Rattler.
He likes the guy.
Hype train. Yeah, my God. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame before the draft comes if Ryan keeps on talking about him. It's embarrassing.
Oh, goodness. All right, we're going to keep going. We got the Raiders up next. They have a handful of needs out there. What do you deem most important, Rick?
Well, okay, I'm going to go with, yes, Stidham is a bridge stopgap, whatever you want to call him, type quarterback. So, but I think the Las Vegas Raiders also need a quarterback, and I can see him go potentially offensive line. I can see him going in the secondary. They have needs all over. I know they've signed Gardner Minshew, but they're going to have to get a franchise quarterback going forward. My prediction is they stay there and they go with Michael Penix Jr. because Denver is going to move out.
Other needs that they have, you mentioned quarterback, edge, tackle, corner, receiver. They need a lot. They need a lot there. We're going to move to Indy next. And, Ryan, there's an opening for cornerback to take this Colts defense to another level. There's a few talented draftees to choose from, right?
Absolutely. So they drafted Juju Brents in the second round last year. They re-upped Kenny Moore, who plays in the slot. But there's going to be an opportunity to get probably the top two names on this list, Jenny. I think this is right around the range. They'll start coming off the board. Whether you love Quinyon Mitchell at Toledo or Terrion Arnold at Alabama, you can't go wrong with either player. And I think this is an opportunity for the Colts to get better in that secondary. Now, they could also target wide receiver to help out Anthony Richardson. That's a consideration, maybe offensive line. But I think cornerback is going to be the strongest position as they sit there in the middle of the first round.
Rick, we're going to the Jags next. Jacksonville in search of the right combo of receivers for Trevor Lawrence out there, but they also need to patch up holes in the secondary, the edge position. Where do you think they're going to go here?
Yeah, I think you have to go edge rusher here if there's one there. I can see them potentially going receiver. I can see them potentially going in the secondary. But if I were them, I would look at an edge rusher. I know they extended Josh Allen, Arik Armstead they brought in, but he's an interior. Trayvon Walker, who they drafted first overall a couple of years ago, was a better inside than outside rusher, although he's improving. You have to get after the quarterback. If there's an edge rusher there, go with the edge rusher.
Looking at the Bengals next, one would imagine that since he's trying to shore up the trenches. So we go in O-line or D-line. What do you think, Ryan?
I think it starts with the offensive line. It depends on who's there, Jenny. They pick 18, and there could be a situation where one of these tackles slips, whether it's a Tully Fuaga maybe a Troy Fautani, maybe an Amarius Mims that's there, and you feel like that's the easy choice. The complications become if there happens to be a Byron Murphy there, the defensive tackle out of Texas, because he is a special player. Or if there's a Brock Bowers there, the tight end out of Georgia. I think the Bengals are in a pretty good spot to get to pick from one of these three positions and get the best player or one of the best players in those positions and help either Joe Burrow on the offensive side with a tackle or a threat in the middle of the field like Brock Bowers, or shore up that defense in the middle of the defense. So I think the Bengals are going to be a much better football team, especially with a healthy Joe Burrow coming out of the draft than they were heading into the draft.
Brock Bowers getting a lot of love on this segment. I like it. Up next, we're going to talk the Steelers, whether it's Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Pittsburgh quarterback is going to need some targets. They also need some protection. Who do you think they're going to add from the draft, Rick?
Oh, well, this was Ryan's team all along, but if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm going to go ahead and take an interior offensive lineman. I think if Jackson Powers Johnson there or Graham Barton's there, I think you have to highly consider that. Now, if one of those tackles slips down, maybe I'm going to look at him like a Fuaga, but if they're not there, then I think you have to go interior offensive line. Pittsburgh is going to run the ball with Arthur Smith. They have to get better up front. So whether it's tackle or interior, they have to go with the interior offensive lineman or offensive tackle.
I don't hate it, Rick. I know you're a huge Jackson Powers Johnson guy. I like him, but I think you guys are much closer than I want it to be. So I think if J.C. Latham is there, and we've talked about this, he makes sense as a right tackle, and then Broderick Jones kicks over to the left side. If Tully Fuaga's there, he makes a ton of sense as well. He's a right tackle. You talked about Jackson Powers Johnson or even a Graham Barton. And they have needs at wide receiver. I don't think you do that in round one because, as we've talked to death, they have needs at center, and those feel like the first two needs before you circle back and get a wide receiver in a class, Jenny, that's much deeper at the wide receiver position on day 2 and even day 3 than it will be with the offensive linemen.
I should have known you were going to be talking to the Steelers. That's my bad. All right, we're going to talk to the Dolphins now. And, of course, Rick, we're going to chat with you about this. You like them bolstering the unit that would protect Tua, but also keep that run game going. So which way are you going for the Fins?
Yeah, well, I thought Ryan was going to take Spencer Rattler with the Steelers with the #1 overall pick. Surprisingly, he didn't on this show. But I'm going to say the same thing with the Miami Dolphins as the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have to go interior offensive line. They signed Brewer from Tennessee, who is not the answer. They have to learn how to win on the road. They have to win in cold games, which they haven't proven they can do. And the only way they're going to do that is be able to run the ball more effectively. And how you help that is improving the offensive line. So there's no way the Miami Dolphins do not go offensive line. And Graham Barton would be the guy I would select if I were the Miami Dolphins.
Put a circle around his name. All right, Buffalo now. One would imagine that receiver was a priority even before the Bills traded away Diggs. So, Rick, do you think they're going to go in that direction?
Like, Jen, you can answer that, Jenny. I can tell you.
I just had to throw it out there for you to just take it up.
Okay. Let me take that hook. Okay,
Who do you like?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say receiver. Now, I know no one else is thinking that, but I'm going to do the receiver thing. So whatever best receiver is left, Diggs is gone, traded to Houston. Gabe Davis is down with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Who the heck is Josh Allen going to throw to? The best receiver left as they come down through the board. Sit there and wait. It's a very deep receiver class. Get your receiver and move on in life.
I think that's the first time I went fishing on HQ. It's got to be a first for everything. All right, we're going to look at the Ravens now. Lost a whole slew of talent in free agency. Ryan, where do you see Baltimore? Where's their most glaring need?
Ryan's stuck on the whole.
Hey, Jenny, I spend more time with Rick than I spend with my family. And let me just tell you this. I love Rick to death. But the greatest thing about Rick is he laughs at his own jokes before anyone else does. And once I've said it, you can't unsee it. So look forward to that going forward because this guy loves him some Rick humor. All right, who are we talking about? We're talking about the Baltimore Ravens here. And they're going to take Spencer Rattler because they don't need Lamar Jackson. No, of course they're not going to do that. They need help at right tackle. They traded Morgan Moses back to the Jets. So if a Tyler Guyton is sitting there at Oklahoma, that makes a lot of sense. You have to shore up the right side of that offensive line. You see it here in my latest mock draft. Another consideration, perhaps, they might want to look at the secondary, and I've heard that they might be trying to outbid some other teams that pick a few picks after them for a secondary player, so that's something to keep an eye on. And maybe if you fall in love with one of these wide receivers, you think about that. But I think the conversation starts, Jenny, with the offensive tackle position, especially on the right side.
We're going to go to the defending Super Bowl champs. So, Rick, this one's for you. The Kansas City Chiefs, they need to protect Patrick Mahomes at all costs, but you want them to get some more weapons. Walk us through it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to take that bait again you're throwing out there, Jenny, and it was very good, the first one. So keep throwing that shrimp to me. I'm like one of those, like, trained
like
seals.
A dolphin seal? Yeah.
Yeah. Very good, very good. Okay, let me go back.
Oh, my God.
The Kansas City Chiefs. I would say offensive line. But, and I know they signed Hollywood Brown, they got him on this, but with the Rashee Rice situation and the off-field that he's probably going to get suspended by the league, they're going to need some offensive weapons. I don't know how long he's going to get suspended, but if there's a receiver there, just take the receiver to help Patrick Mahomes. Hopefully you can get an offensive lineman in the second go-around.
Is there a certain receiver that you're looking at?
Whichever one's left on the board.
Okay.
But if a Michael Thomas Jr. is there, if an A.D. Mitchell is there, any one of these receivers, the one person I would not take is Xavier Worthy. Other than that, I would take any other big receiver, especially they can do the same things that Rashee Rice did for them last year.
Why not Worthy?
I think he's a straight line speed guy. I understand he can give him some vertical stretch. I was concerned with some of the drops, and I'm concerned with his size, especially when you get into cold weather games. We always felt we needed the bigger receiver.
All right, Ryan, we're going to look at the Texans next. They took on some veterans, Hunter, Diggs now over there. It seems like they are trying to win and trying to win now. How do they address their next need in the draft?
So they traded out of the first round, Jenny, to allow the Vikings to get back up there at 23. So they don't pick until the second round. And you see what they've added here. One of the things they do need, however, is defensive line help. So that's something they could target in the middle of the second round. And there'll be some players there to choose from. Michael Hall Jr., perhaps, out of Ohio State, could be an option. He's a twitchy interior offensive lineman, slightly undersized, but he is incredibly hard to block. Johnny Newton will be long gone by then, but that's something they're going to target. You can think about the secondary and even running back in later rounds. Yes, we saw Joe Mixon there, but they could add some depth, whether it's a Jalen Wright out of Tennessee, who ran into the 4.3s. He could be an option, or Trey Benson, excuse me, out of Florida State, who also ran into the 4.3s. Those could be later in the rounds options. Day 2, I don't think they're going to last until day 3.
Last but not least, fellas, and man, this has been fun. We're going to talk about Cleveland. So, Rick, where do you see the Browns going?
Well, they don't have a first-round pick, as everybody knows, and I think they have a really complete roster. They did a lot this free agency. They went out and traded for Judy. They added to their depth. But if I were the Cleveland Browns, I would look at the defensive tackle position. You got Tomlinson, you got Harris, you got Jefferson. All those guys are on the wrong side of 30, so I need to get some youth in there. So if there's a defensive tackle in the second round where they're picking, maybe a Braden Fisk from Florida State, I think that'd be an ideal fit for Cleveland.
The fellas behind with the first pick pod. If you didn't have fun in that segment, fishing, throwing some shrimp around, then don't listen to their pod. But if you like laughing, check them out. Ryan Wilson, Rick Spielman, getting you draft ready. Fellas, it is always a pleasure. I don't think I've laughed that hard in a segment in a very long time. Now I'm going to watch Rick laugh at himself. Oh, man. Check it out. Scan that QR code and listen to With the First Pick.